All right, we're recording. So this is for the joshuaisaac.com blog, new blog coming out. This is Geordie from Mexico, all the way in hot Mexico. Maybe you can't see the fan in his room right now, and I'm Josh. There we go. There's the fan, nice and hot.
Hey everyone, how are you? Thanks, Josh. Happy to be on.
Yeah, and so Geordie, just brief background. Geordie and I are going to be coaching in the foundation coming up here, and we're going to be actually teaching pre-sales. And if you don't know what the foundation is, it was started by Dane Maxwell, and it basically teaches you how to start a business from scratch, and mainly in the software realm of things. And we're going to be teaching pre-sales and how to actually pre-sell something before you create it. So I want to do just a quick talk with Geordie and I about what is a pre-sale, how do you do it, and maybe a few action items for yourself. So we can kind of get into it here. Geordie, just to give a bit of background maybe on you, do you want to tell the whoever's going to be watching this what your business is and kind of what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. For those people who obviously don't know about me, I live in Mexico. I have a family. I'm down here. I'm from Bermuda, and I've been in Mexico for about 3 years. I've got four companies right now, three of which have been started in the last 12 months. So before I had one company for about 7 years, and I recently have started. I didn't start them, but I'm actually like a co-founder. The Guest Retain I did start, which is my main software as a service that I started in the foundation, and that's the one we'll primarily be speaking about. But I'm involved in another software as a service, which we're also in the process of pre-selling. So the timing is pretty good because we're actually now about halfway what we need to get for development. We're actually going to start development with the idea of funding the sales that come in to fund the rest of development. So it's perfect timing to talk about pre-sales.
Awesome. So you kind of described a little bit there what a pre-sale is, and maybe like if you take it really basic for someone who's maybe never heard of the term pre-sale in a business, what is a pre-sale?
Okay, so the concept is really just basically what it sounds like, pre-selling a service that doesn't actually exist. So you're taking an idea, and in this case, it's usually something that doesn't exist, because you need to have the argument of saying, well, why would I pay you for something that doesn't exist? And then the response to something like that would be, well, it doesn't actually exist. You told me that it's a problem. I'm going to solve this problem for you, and instead of it being a custom solution, it's going to be something that I will pre-sell in a small sort of package and go out and find a group of other customers to sort of split up that custom cost. And that's
Yeah.
sort of a complicated way of describing it, but basically that's how I would define the concept of the term of pre-selling something that doesn't exist.
And it's kind of like I think a new wave of business coming out. Like the classic model is get an idea in your head, build the product, and then hopefully the product's good enough that people will come buy it. And then I think that's kind of what people think about when they think, oh, that's how I start a business. And I think that pre-sales too is kind of like the new wave of business coming where you can actually have this way of extracting an idea or finding a most painful problem in a market, and then going, and if it's painful enough, people will usually buy it before you create it. So it's just that kind of process of finding that pain and then asking if people will buy it and then creating it, and it like eliminates risk for you when you start building a product. And that seems like impossible, but it works.
Yeah, and it's actually a lot easier than people think once you
Mm,
can grasp that sort of that idea. But it seems to me like the concept of pre-selling is not really that new. I think it's new in terms for like software, but
mm,
think of like real estate developers. I mean,
good
the
point.
idea of buying like a $5 million land and
Hmm.
then going out and selling those lots and houses before they exist. It's really sort of a well accepted concept. So
Hmm.
if people can think of it in the same way, it makes it a lot easier because you're talking about building something that's $15,000. In
Hmm.
some cases more. So if people think of it in that way, and it's a little easier to sort of grasp.
That's a really good point. Yeah, and I totally agree. I mean, it's been around for a while. I guess maybe hasn't been applied to software as much. I'm not sure, but it seems like it's an old concept that's becoming, new again somehow. I don't know. It's just, but
Yeah,
yeah,
thought I'm
totally.
sure they were doing it back in the Roman times.
Yeah.
Selling lots of land before they fully owned it or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, and then I'd love to go into just maybe about how you pre-sold clients in your business. Maybe we can go use guest retain as a model for it. And then as whoever's listening to this, as you listen to it, it'd be just really good to listen to how you did it and just the action steps that the listeners could take for their businesses that they may want to start or the businesses they're in currently. So yeah, how did you go about pre-selling in guest retain?
So basically, I had, without going too deep into how I found the pain,
Yeah.
it's definitely an important part, but basically, I had called into maybe 50 or 60 different hoteliers and spa owners asking them what pain or problems they were having. And consistently, I was hearing reviews, the right person not getting notification on problems that were happening in the business until they were reading about them too late on the review sites. That was my main pain. And so, I went about looking for a way to solve that by basically asking them, well, what if it did this and what if it did that? And it says, yeah, that could work. So basically, I did not have an idea. I went and interviewed as many hoteliers as I could set up interviews for until I found enough consistency with that pain where I felt like I could go out and actually make some sales. And
Mhm.
so the actual collecting of money from them is basically the ultimate form of validation on the validity of that pain.
Mhm.
So if somebody says, yes, I'm having that pain, come talk to me when you have a product, I'd be like, well, no, there's not going to be a product unless you give me money. He
Mhm.
says, okay, I understand. So I understand. So how much do you need? And then I had to basically craft an offer, and it makes it sound like a package. So I had to come up with pricing, and it was basically it was pretty sort of an esoteric process that you do for just talking to people, saying, well, how much is this worth to you? How much money are you losing right now? Okay, and so I took the average on 10 people, um, and then I took an average and figured out about what I thought what they would pay.
Mhm.
Um, and I actually had to create tiers because I realized that a bigger client would pay more than a smaller client. So I had to do some fancy sort of um, thinking on that. And I'm still, the pricing package is pretty well defined right now based on the size of a customer, basically like a number of clients that come through their business. So that's basically how I did it. The actual process of collecting the money and that is just it wasn't that much different than interviewing the clients. So some of them I knew, some of them I had to go out and develop from cold leads to warm leads to interviews to like a second or third conversation with them asking for the money. So I usually wouldn't ask for the money like on the first conversation.
Cool. Yeah, I had the same thing happen for me too. You don't want to ask for it on the first call. You don't have that relationship built yet. So basically, what you did is you found a pain in the market on hoteliers, and then you kind of validated that pain, and then you crafted a bit of an offer, and then asked for them to buy it before you started creating it.
Exactly. So I experimented to see what people would pay.
Hmm.
I first came in, I tried at least 3 or 4 times for somebody to pay like $4,000. So I
Hmm.
tried to get like 3 people to pay like $2,000, or then I tried to get someone to pay $4,000, and they would
Hmm.
get the product for life.
Hmm.
And after probably, I was actually really close to closing deals like that, like 2 or 3 times. And then after the third time, I was like, I'm not, this is a waste of my time.
Hmm.
It's too hard and I waste too much time doing that. So I said, I'm going to go in and ask for like 3 months up front or
Hmm.
2 months and then give them 3 months. And those sales were a lot easier to close. Obviously, I'm asking for like, $300 instead of like $2,000.
Mm. So
Once I, I
good.
was able to close like a bunch of deals pretty quickly.
So your the offer you created was 3 months. They get 3 months free if they pay for 3 months upfront. Was that it you're saying?
So I had at the time I had a package for 300. I gave them 20% off, which turned out to be like 240, somewhere
Mm-hmm.
around there. So 2 months would be like 480, something
Okay.
like that. The figure of like 478 sticks in my mind. And so that would be 2 months paid to get 90 days of service. And
Cool.
so basically, the offer was that. And at any time during the 90 days, they had the option to cancel and get their money back. Of course, no one did.
Mm-hmm. And how'd you find when you actually asked someone to buy this when it wasn't created? How'd you find the response? What was it like? Were you nervous?
Uh, I was a little nervous probably the first time, but then when I did it, it actually sounded kind of natural to me
Yeah.
because I was like, I really didn't have as much trouble as I've heard some other people talking about having with the concept of pre-sales because I was like, well, what's going on here is that, they would try and make a comparison to other software,
Mm-hmm.
well, the company's not doing that. It's like, yeah, but I'm creating something this other company doesn't have. So
Mm-hmm.
you comparing me to them is not really is not valid. So I'm creating something that doesn't exist, and basically it's a custom solution for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was describing it before. A custom solution, if you were to pay for it yourself, would be $15,000.
Mm-hmm.
In order for you to get a deal on this, I'm only asking for a small slice of that.
And what's it done for your business now? Like you going this route and pre-selling people, what benefits do you see in your business doing that way? Because I'm sure it is take a little more time to kind of start up the business, waiting for pre-sales. But what's the benefits been for you so far with the business?
Well, the benefits have been huge because basically developed a product that I knew people wanted, that they had input and feedback and were directly involved in the creation. Because
Mm-hmm.
that was basically part of the whole process too. Is like, listen, you're going to give me some money, but
Mm-hmm.
in return for that, I want to make sure that I'm creating something that you specifically really want. So if
Mm-hmm.
you will give your feedback, I plan to incorporate it in my product.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say probably maybe 6 or 7 out of 10 clients would be interested in that, and some of them didn't really care about that. But the 6 or 7 that were interested provided basically the premise for a lot of the features that I needed to
Mm-hmm.
develop core offering. So when I came out with my product, I knew first of all I had cash flow, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
those customers immediately were going to be recurring revenue. So I had a base pay coming in, and I knew that when I started, and I had that valuable customer feedback from them, and it basically started me on a whole process of how I would later how I would later interact with my customers. So now, before I get involved in any new feature, I treat it the same way. So I'm talking to my customers, I'm getting feedback from
Mm-hmm.
them, asking them, and I'm actually getting like custom features. Like if a customer wants to do an integration with an all-in-one software, I make them pay a year in advance to get that. So
Mm-hmm.
that shows me that they really need that. And if they, well, no, I don't actually want to do that, then that means you didn't need that feature bad enough.
Mm-hmm.
If someone pays for it in a year in advance, it means they really need it. And so it proves to me that it's a really important feature.
Hmm. Just it's like a whole mentality now. Even now that you have your business and your product created, you still have that pre-sale mentality.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. So I guess some action steps for the listeners, like if there's listeners here that are wanting to apply this pre-sale concept to a new startup or their own business, what's one big piece of advice you could give them to just start doing it?
Um, I think I mean, obviously, you got to get on the phone and talk to your customers.
Hmm.
There's no way around it. So but I wouldn't cold call. I wasted 2 months literally cold calling
Hmm.
and just trying to get past gatekeepers, getting to the prospect, trying to sell them on it. That is such a waste of time. So I would start with email. So say, for example, if you have a list, send out a personalized email one at a time to your prospect. Do some research on it, not very much, like 2 minutes. Find out what their name is, what the company does, and then ask them and be really honest about saying, hey, listen, I'm an aspiring entrepreneur. I'm looking into developing this. I don't have a product, but if you'd be willing to speak with me, I'd like to see what you think about this idea. Here is the problem. Are you having it?
Hmm.
And so out of 10 emails, you might get 2 or 3 saying, yes, I am having that problem, and yes, I will speak with you. Then you set up that phone call, and you've already got a warm. It's basically like a warm lead, but you're not wasting your time talking to someone that doesn't have the problem. So that was a big thing for me. I wasted 2 months cold calling. Once I made that switch, it was like, I was making sales like every week.
Mm, awesome. So as an element of just being honest too, just tell them what you're doing. Like,
Just tell them exactly who you are. Like,
yeah,
here's my Facebook login, here's my LinkedIn
yeah,
login, here's
yeah,
my name, here's my picture,
yeah.
here's exactly who I am, and I'm not affiliated with any company. I don't
Hmm.
work for, Apple or something
Hmm.
like that, or consulting company. I'm by myself. I'm trying to start a company, and I don't have a product.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that can be a like we'll probably talk more about this in the future sometime, you and I, Jody, but I think this can be applied to software, to painting businesses, to anything. Like it all comes, if you have an idea or, better yet, a pain that you're trying to solve. Basically it's like, who's your market? Go to them and then test it, see if it's painful enough. And if it's painful enough, and you ask if they'll buy it, before you even have it created or have your service created. I mean, you'll know if it's a painful enough problem, and if they say yes, I think that's a business worthwhile going and pursuing. I'll give a little example too. I know when I was 21, I started a painting company, and I didn't know how to paint. But what I did is I went door to door in January, starting knocking on doors, and seeing if people were interested in painting. And I found I got some leads. People were interested, and I went and I set up those leads for estimates. And I went and estimated their house and gave them a price. And then I asked them if we could do the job in the summer, and they said yes. And I took a 10% deposit down in February, March, April to do the jobs in May, June, July. So in that case, I came into May and I had $110,000 worth of painting booked, before I knew how to paint, and that made me learn how to paint and hire people to fulfill the service. So I think you can do this whole pre-sale mentality. You can do with any business. So I think that, as action steps too, like you're saying, like be honest, tell them what you're doing. But if you have an idea, the first thing is go out there and validate it, and validate by talking to the market and asking them to buy it. And you'll be surprised what people that if it's painful enough, people are going to buy it from you, even if you don't have it. So, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I hope people get something out of this.
Yeah, totally. And that story, I actually hadn't heard the full story to that, so it's
Hmm.
totally, obviously. And I would even further say that, just further clarifies, don't spend a lot of money on your validation, because you don't need to. You don't
Hmm.
need to. Just go out and spend
Hmm.
the least amount of money validating the idea. It doesn't
Yeah.
cost money to pick up the phone or
Hmm.
write an email. So just go
No.
and before you don't buy domains. Don't
Yeah.
don't fall in love with your idea.
Hmm.
Go out and don't spend any money on it, and validate it before you start falling in love with the idea.
Oh, absolutely, and it's so cheap. So, and maybe just one. What are a few websites that people could go to get names and emails, for free of their market if they wanted to?
I don't know a lot of the places where you can buy like email lists, but I mean, you can start with Yellow Pages.
Yeah.
Uh, I heard this guy named Peter Erlings that did this Arches Snapper. Have you heard of that? It's a SaaS for architects, but basically he went to Google and typed in like email list for architects, and like within the third result was able to call a company up and buy like a 35,000 email
Oh,
list
wow.
for like $250 or something. I was amazed when I heard that.
Yeah.
So it's just basically go to Google and look around. I don't recommend buying lists,
Yeah.
um, but certainly starting with yellow pages and just go through. There's nothing illegal about emailing a company and asking them if they would take a phone call.
Hmm.
So it's not spam. That's a you want to speak with someone. Um, so I think if you go about it that way, that's the easiest way to do it. And then you can get a little bit more sophisticated, but like hiring a virtual assistant for like
Hmm.
$2 an hour to actually do that manual kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Away.
Yeah, and that's be really awesome to get into some at a later time. But yeah, like I found the same thing. Yellow Pages, yellowpages.com, yellowpages.ca. You got Manta.com. You got all these different
Yeah.
sites that you can go and get or Google get people from, or if you're looking for emailing and calling. And then on the flip side, if you're doing a painting company or a window cleaning company, I mean, man, you got residential neighborhoods probably all over. You can go knock on doors, and that's kind of where you get to the market. So yeah, it doesn't cost any money at all. But yeah, that probably wraps it up. If you want to get in contact with you, Geordie, what's your website?
My website is Geordie Wardman, GeordieWardman.com. So if you just Google it, I'm the only Geordie Wardman, fortunately, in the world. So and
and
emails on there and everything is there. So
and then you also have a pre-sale course on mixergy.com, right?
that's right, I did, and it talks like pre-selling is only a portion of it. It's
Okay.
basically the whole sort of experience on the foundation, but it's at least half the class. Yeah,
Okay. Awesome. So they could find you on mixergy.com, your website. You got lots of good information on your website. You and I are going to be killing it in the foundation next year and teaching pre-sales. So if anyone's joining, we'll see you there. And then also we'd be happy to talk and get a hold of anyone. But yeah, and there's anything you want to talk about further on this interview, either you can comment on this in the blog post on Geordie's website or my website. We'd be happy to talk to you. But wanted to encourage you guys that pre-sales are possible and they're quite easy. You just got to basically take a few action steps and get to your market and ask them for the sale. And when you find a pain you want to solve. So yeah, it's great chatting with you, Geordie.
that's right. I'll just leave with one comment too. Josh and I are both coaches too, so we're actually offer free coaching at times too. So just reach out, and chances are you'll probably get a free coaching session, right, Josh?
Absolutely. Reach out. We love to chat with entrepreneurs. It's kind of a hobby of ours.
A hobby.
It's fun. We enjoy doing it. So we enjoy connecting. And yeah, we'll definitely chat with you guys soon. Thanks for listening.